Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for 10 to 14 days for today's video. Day 10 will take us to 25th of March, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. Maybe runs around a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at the CFS V2 at the end of the video for April, and I shall get on with that for you in a moment. Just say that first, video sales our 6 UK weather forecast. We've also released January Friday. Please check out those two videos if you would like to do that. Like, share, and subscribe on all update videos and content. And thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. We're going to be live at 10:30, by the way, with the pub run. So I shall see you at 10:30 maybe with the final pub run live of the current season. We'll see you a little bit later on for that if you're around the channel. Okay, going to start our centering temperature. The CET is currently sitting at 6.9, which is 1.3 degrees above 61 to 1990 average. That is provisional to yesterday, to the 14th of March. So despite a pretty chilly start, it has actually turned out to be a milder than average first half of the month. I think that will keep rising and will probably be somewhere about 7.5 maybe by the early part of next week, into the middle of next week anyway. These were GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Looking at Cardiff today, red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Cardiff. So starting off around to slightly below average with the upper air temperatures at the moment, but they're going to be turning milder through the third week of the month. So over the next week, really looking above average with the upper air temperatures, surface temperatures included in that, of course. Into the last week of March, we see the upper air temperatures then starting to cool down and going back closer to average, possibly even a little bit below. How far we go with that cool down remains to be seen. We have got some quite cold ensemble members that are down here. So we might turn quite cold into the final week of the month. That includes the Easter period. It's a little way off, quite a bit of uncertainty, but it is a relatively clear trend for a cool down anyway. But before then, the next week, 10 days, is looking generally on the mild side. And as far as precipitation is concerned, by the way, we see that we've got more precipitation spikes to come, though maybe not as wet as it has been over the past few weeks and months and whatnot. We've possibly got some drier windows of weather opening up between bands of rain. And then maybe into the last sort of days of March, which of course includes the Easter period, then we might see a trend to more unsettled conditions. So generally looking cooler and wetter as we get into the final days of month, including Easter, unfortunately there. Temperature anomalies from the 15th to 23rd of March coming out above average. Should be a mild average week to come. And precipitation anomalies from 15th to 23rd of March. Dry and average for Ireland, England and Wales, but near normal up across Scotland. That's a bit of a change for England and Wales and Ireland anyway, after all of the recent wet anomaly charts that we've seen here with these maps. The latest Windflow Map from earthnowschool.net showed that low pressure moving out into the North Sea, and we're bringing the wind from more of a northwesterly direction today, starting to pull down some slightly cooler air, but won't last for very long. Milder southwesterly winds are waiting in the Atlantic, and they'll be pushing back in over the weekend and through to next week. Right, let's start going through the chart data then. This is our latest UK Met Euro run. Is looking for midnight on Monday with low pressure in the Atlantic and generally unsettled conditions into the north and west especially. Actually looking quite wet in the west and northwest through the early part of next week with that low. And then the low sort of slips away to the south through into the middle of next week with higher pressure ridging up from the Azores. That looks quite dry and mild as we get through toward the latter stages of next week. I reckon that could easily get the temperature to mid-teens Celsius, and with a nice little bit of March sunshine, that would be very spring-like indeed. Icon, again, looking unsettled through the beginning of next week, especially in the west and northwest, with plenty of rain to come, and then higher pressure ridging up from the southwest into the second half of next week, turning things drier then. And again, the Azores high is making a move, turning things drier, but also keeping it generally mild with winds in from the west and the southwest. However, low pressure to the northwest of Scotland could bring further rain at times there. KMA, again, looking unsettled through the early part of next week before the Azores high starts ridging up from the southwest, turning things drier and milder through the latter stages of next week. Then the high pressure starts to pull out into the Atlantic, and as we approach the Easter period from about day 10 onwards, it starts to turn not only more unsettled but colder as well, with winds going in to a north or a northeasterly direction. Before high pressure topples down over the top of the country, mostly dry but potentially quite chilly there as we're moving towards Easter with the KMA. GFS midnight run, again looking unsettled through the early part of next week before high pressure starts ridging in from the southwest, turning things mostly dry through the second half next week. Will be mild with winds in from a west or southwesterly direction. Moving up toward day 10, well, high pressure continues to the south and the east, bringing quite a bit of dry weather with it, always looking a little bit more unsettled though out in the Atlantic to the north and the west. And as we move towards the Easter period, high pressure increasingly taking over, building across the country and to the west. The wind turns into a cooler north or northeasterly then as we get through into the Easter period. Probably not especially cold. Most of the cold with that is slipping down in Scandinavia with this trough of low pressure. So kind of on the periphery of it, but certainly looks cooler anyway as we're moving into the Easter period, if not especially cold there with the GFS midnight run. The GFS 6Z in comparison, again with low pressure in the Atlantic through Monday, bringing quite a lot of unsettled weather into the north and west with it. For high pressure ridges up from the southwest into the second half next week, certainly being dry and keeping it mild with winds in from a west or southwest direction. But by days 9 and 10, it turns more unsettled again. High pressure pulls out into the middle of the Atlantic, low pressure plunges southwards, so turning cool and wet as we approach the day 9-10 period. And then beyond that, high pressure starts to take over across Scandinavia. That starts to bring the wind round to an easterly, not particularly cold easterly, but starts to block off the Atlantic, or tries to. So as going towards the Easter weekend, this gets us to Easter Sunday, actually, the 31st of March. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia, low pressure out of the Atlantic. A proper duel is taking place there between the block to the northeast and the low pressure out in the Atlantic. If you enjoyed the video, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much everyone for doing that. Why not drop a comment and say what you think about this and all of our videos and content. And don't forget to tell friends about GavsWeatherVids. Thank you so much everybody for doing that. GEM, again with low pressure dominating on Monday, bringing lots of unsettled weather into the north and the west. The south and east should be a little bit drier though. The middle of next week and last stations next week sees high pressure ridging in from the southwest, so turning mostly dry into the second half next week and should be mild or very mild with that. And then heading up toward day 10, high pressure's over into the east country, low pressure out in the west, out to the west in the Atlantic, and we're starting to bring in more of an east or southeasterly flow. So a bit of a battle going on, but I suspect the low pressure probably would be the driving force there. I think the high pressure in Scandinavia looks a little bit weak and flimsy, so I'd imagine as we go into about last week of March, it's probably still going to be quite unsettled. And then the ECM looks like that. Again, low pressure is in control and dominating the weather for the early part of next week, and the second half next week sees higher pressure trying to ridge up from the southwest. Maybe not as strong with that ridge as some of the other model outputs, so the ECM perhaps keeps it rather changeable into the second half next week. Actually, winds going into the northwest, a bit cool and showery there. And day 10 looking unsettled as well, with low pressure then sinking in across the country. A high pressure pulling out into the Atlantic as well, so not only unsettled, but will also be starting to turn cooler there by day 10 with the ECM. And just how settled it gets into the second half next week remains to be seen. This is a precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from TemP. So further showery conditions to come, although not as wet as it has been, but it still looks rather showery really over the next few days. And towards the end of next week, it looks unsettled again. Remember, other models have it a little bit drier than this into the second half of next week, but the ECM keeps it rather showery and cool all the way up to day 10. These are the options on the table within the ECM Ensembles today for day 10. From the Icelandic Met Office gets us 25th of March, 23 members of the ECM Ensembles with low pressure to the north, high pressure is to the south, so again looking rather showery and a little bit on the cool side there, especially so for more northern and western regions. We've got 16 even more unsettled though with a deep trough of low pressure through the west of Europe. So that's going to be very unsettled, and we're on the cool side of the jet stream. So that also looks quite cool, as well as being wet. And then we've got 12 with higher pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland. Low pressure is over France. That will bring the wind in more from an easterly direction. Wettest weather with that, of course, is in the south, but driest weather is to the north and west. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. It will get us to the 30th of March, so we're into the Easter weekend then. 11 members of the CET Ensembles with deep low pressure in the North Atlantic and across Western Europe. 10 with high pressure to our east-northeast, low pressure to our west-southwest. That will bring the wind up from a southwesterly direction. We've got 8 with a blocking area of high pressure to the north, low pressure to the south. That will bring the wind in from the east. West is where with that is in the south, of course. We've got another 8 with high pressure more towards the Canadian side of Greenland. Low pressure is to the south, winds coming in from the easterly direction. We've got 7 with high pressure to the east. Low pressure is out to the west, and that will bring the wind up from a southerly direction. So that will be mild, of course, with southerly winds. And then we've got 7 with high pressure to our north and low pressure is to the south. And winds will be coming in from an easterly direction with that one. So, you know, range of options there. Most of them look quite unsettled for the Easter period. Temperature a bit up for grabs, I think. If the wind is easterly, could be quite chilly. If the wind is sort of southeasterly or southerly, could be relatively mild. But most of the options do seem to involve low pressure, and that's particularly so in more southern regions. CFS V2 finally for April. This is the latest 700 millibar height anomaly prediction. So going for a blocking area of high pressure to the north, low pressure to the south, kind of like what just been saying we've got on the table really, from the CET Ensembles. Winds tend to be coming in from more of an easterly direction. Oh, again, it's to be determined what the temperature would do with that. If we get like an east-northeast, that could be quite chilly in April still. If we get sort of a southeasterly, southerly, then that would be relatively mild. The temperature anomaly shows no particular signal, and the precipitation anomaly is also showing no particular signal there. So, again, I think we probably come away with the chance of quite a chilly month with that blocking area of high pressure, but it will be determined by the exact wind direction. Okay, we're done. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to show everyone board doing that. Why not drop a comment today what you think about this and all of our videos and content. And don't forget to tell friends about GavsWeatherVids. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. So it's a mixed bag. I think we're probably going to get a few drier days later next week, but we might be back to unsettled conditions again by the Easter period, just in time, you know, for the long weekend. But again, that's a little way off, so we'll wait and see how it all pans out. So we're going to be live streaming at 10:30. We'll have the final pub run live of the season. That'll be coming up at 10:30. And then tomorrow, we've got 6 AM UK weather forecast, the EC42 day, weekend forecast, and 10 to 14 day as well. On Sunday, we're going to have the 6 AM forecast again. We're up to update number 3 in our summer updates. So we'll be live at 6 PM, live streaming our 10 to 14 day, and we'll have some long range included in that as well. So I shall see you over the weekend, or tonight, over weekend, whatever, you know, just check in if you can. And we'll see you again for another one very, very soon. For this one, though, that's all for now, and thanks so much.